Hello students, welcome back. Once again, this is Mrs. Mercado. This is part B, or lecture B, over chapter 26, which deals with capital investment analysis. Okay, I'm not going to remind you to read. Well, yes, I am, because we have to read. Just make sure that you do read before you attempt your problems. And I am going to jump over to the next exercise that I'm going to be covering, which is exercise 26-14. Now, exercise 26-14 deals with the average rate of return, the cash payback period, and the net present value method for a service company. So the problem reads, Spanish Peaks Railroad is considering acquiring equipment at a cost of $1,250,000. The equipment has an estimated life of 8 years and no residual value. It is expected to provide yearly net cash flows of $312,500. The company's minimum desired rate of return for net present value analysis is 12%. So they're asking us to compute three things. The first thing that we're going to compute is the average rate of return, giving effect to the straight line depreciation on the investment. Now, in the last problem that we covered, we knew that we needed to identify or figure out the average annual income and the average investment before we actually dove into calculating the average rate of return. We need to know those two components so we can be able to plug them into the formula. Now, every problem is different. Okay, last time they gave you the amount of the income. In this case, they're not giving you the amount of the income, so we have to use our critical thinking to be able to figure out, well, how can I calculate my average annual income? Okay, so if you see here, they're telling you that your expected yearly cash flows is $312,500. That is the cash flows you're going to be generating from this investment. Okay, now we need to make an adjustment to that cash flow figure there because there's another component to it, the depreciation. Okay, so we are using the straight line depreciation. So before I even calculate my average rate of return, first we need to calculate, okay, the first step is to calculate your annual earnings, okay? Earnings, okay? And how am I going to calculate my annual earnings? Let me insert some rows here, okay? So, how am I going to calculate my annual earnings? Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off by getting my annual cash flows. The problem says that you're looking at cash flows of $312,500, okay? I need to subtract my annual depreciation, okay? So your depreciation needs to be deducted. Well, they didn't give you a depreciation amount. You need to calculate that depreciation. So they're telling you that you're using the straight line depreciation method, and this particular investment that you're looking at is good for 8 years, okay? So how much is this investment for? Well, the investment is for $1,250,000. That's what's given to you here in the problem. Your investment amount is $1,250,000, and it's going to be for 8 years. Okay. Okay. And let's see what that gives us. Okay. So let's calculate the component that's in parentheses. $1,250,000 divided by 8 years. So that means that my annual depreciation is $156,250. So let's write that down. I have a piece of paper here in front of me. Let me get my little notebook. Okay, because ever since I got, maybe I'm getting old. I don't know what's going on, but I forget my numbers. So I'm just going to write it down. So it's $156,250. What does that number represent? This is your annual depreciation, okay, on the investment, okay? Now I'm going to clear that out. So I know that I'm going to have annual cash flows of $312,500, and I'm going to subtract the depreciation that I calculated, which was $1,250,000 over 8 years, which gave me $156,250. So my income, my investment, okay, no, my average annual income, which is what we're calculating, or my annual earnings, is going to be $156,250. Okay, $156,250. Okay, so if you were to put it in your calculator, how do you calculate your earnings? Well, I know I have cash flows of $312,500. Then I'm going to subtract, and then the bad thing here is this calculator doesn't have the option for parentheses. Okay, so that's why we have to do the first the first calculation, which is 1,250,000 divided by 8 years. 1,250,000, 1, 2, 3, divided by 8 years. That gives me 156,250. That is the amount of your depreciation. Once you get that figure, you subtract the 312,500, which is your annual cash flows, and that will give you the 156,250, which is going to be your annual earnings. Okay, so I've got my annual earnings there. Then we have to calculate your average investment. Okay, second step, calculate annual investment. Okay, and to calculate your annual investment, okay, we're gonna get right here your annual investment is going to be your initial cost plus residual value divided by 2. So my initial cost is 1,250,000. Okay, and then you add your residual value. In this case, my residual value is 0, no residual value. Okay, and then I'm going to divide by 2. Okay, so then that gives me, divided by 2, that gives me $625,000. Okay, that is my annual investment. Okay, so now I can calculate my average rate of return. So the third step is to calculate your average rate of return. Okay, so to calculate your average rate of return, you get your annual earnings or your annual income, which is 156,250, divided by your average investment. And it's average, not annual, average. I got super excited here. Average investment. Okay, and that's 625,000. What happened to my number? Oh, right here. Okay, so you're going to divide by 625, and let's see what that gives us. Okay, so it'll be 156,250 divided by 625, and remember this has to be a percentage. Okay, 25%. Okay, so your average rate of return is 25%. Okay, so just remember there's 2 steps that have to be done. First, you calculate your annual earnings. The second step is to calculate your average investment, and then once you have those 2 figures calculated, just plug it in. It's your average income over your average investment. Okay, and that gives you your average rate of return. Okay, now the second requirement asks us to calculate the cash payback period. Okay, now this is coming straight from your book. You know, I'm not making anything up. I'm not getting information from any outside sources. This is straight coming out of your book. These formulas are included in your ebook. So the cash payback period is equal to your initial cost divided by the annual net cash inflow. Okay, so let's look over here. So the requirement is, let me see if I can move this over here so we can see it. There we go. Okay, so it's your initial cost. The cost of this particular equipment is 1,250,000. Okay, and I'm going to divide it by my annual cash flows. Okay, it says here that the yearly net cash flows is $312,500. Okay, and let's see what that gives us. 1,250,000 divided by 312,500. That gives me 4 years. Okay, so the cash payback period is 4 years. So I'm going to pay back my investment in this equipment. I'm going to pay it back in 4 years. So you're going to pay it back in 4 years. Remember, this piece of equipment is going to last you 8 years. So the first 4 years are to cover for the equipment. The next 4 years are basically money in your pocket. Okay, it's going to take you 4 years to pay back your investment into this equipment. Okay, so that is your cash payback period. It is 4 years. Okay, now letter C, the net present value. Use the present value of an annuity table appearing in Exhibit 5 of this chapter. So I pulled Exhibit 5 table. This is coming from your book. If I clicked on the link there on the problem, it took me here. Okay, so they're asking us to use this table to calculate the net present value. Okay, now we need to be able to, first of all, identify the present value of our annual net cash flows. Okay, so every year we get $312,500. Okay, let me mark this off right here. Let me mark it off. Insert shapes right here. Cash flows. Okay, so my cash flows are $312,500. Okay, no fill. Here we go. So my cash flows are $312,500. The first thing I need to figure out is what is the present value of that cash flow of $312,500. So I need to calculate my present value of my annual cash flow. Okay, so I know my annual cash flow is $312,500. Okay, I need to multiply that times my present value rate provided on Exhibit 5. Okay, so how do I do that? Well, the first thing we need to figure out is how many years is this investment for, or this particular item that we're purchasing. It says here that this equipment is going to last us 8 years. So I'm going to look at year number 8. Okay, look at year number 8 because that is how long, that's the life of the equipment, 8 years. Okay, now they're also wanting a desired rate of return of 12%. So that is how much they want to earn on this investment. The minimum amount of investment of return that they want to have on this project is 12%. So we're going to look at our present value of an annuity here, and we're going to look for the percentage that we're looking at, and we are looking at 12%. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to see where those two figures coordinate or match up. So we're looking at year 8 because that is the useful life, and we're looking at 12%. So then that's going to give me this right here. Okay, it's going to give me a rate of 4.968. Okay, that's the present value of an annuity of $1 at 12% for 8 periods from Exhibit 5. So that is what we're using. Okay, so I'm going to get my present value rate here of 4.968, and I'm going to multiply it times my annual cash flows of $312,500. Okay, and then we can figure out how much we get. Okay, so that's going to be $312,500 times 4.968. That gives me $1,552,500. That is the present value of that annual cash flow. Okay, now there's a component that needs to be deducted. Okay, yes, you're going to make all of this money, but you had to have had some form of an investment. How much money did you have to put in to get this piece of equipment? So the amount that was invested was $1,250,000. And I'm putting it in parentheses because this is an outflow of cash. This is money leaving the company. Okay, you had to invest to get this piece of equipment, so you had to pay this money out. Okay, so I'm going to subtract my amount to be invested of $1,250,000, and then that's going to leave me the net present value of my cash flows. So I'm going to subtract. Excuse me. You're going to get the $1,552,500 minus the $1,250,000, and that's going to give you your net present value of $302,500. Okay. Let me mark that. Okay. So that is the net present value of this particular scenario that we're looking at. Okay. So just remember, the more difficult part here is identifying the present value rate to use from the table. Okay, so once you locate the table, it's just the rate, and the rate is given in the problem. In this case, they're wanting a desired rate of return of 12%. That's why we're looking at the 12% column. And the useful life is the year. It's going to last me 8 years. So you just match them up. Wherever they intersect, that's the rate that you're going to be using to calculate your present value of the annual cash flows. Okay. So that is the net present value of your cash flows. Okay, $302,500. Okay, so those are the 3 requirements that need to be calculated: the average rate of return, the cash payback period, and then finally the present value of your investment, in this case, the acquisition of a piece of equipment. Okay? So these are all of the formulas that you need to utilize. Everything is coming from your book. Make sure that you're using the corresponding table that they're indicating here. It's Exhibit 5, Exhibit 5. Okay? And it's just a matter of applying the formulas to the information provided. Okay? So that is the end of this second exercise. This is exercise 26-14. Okay? If you have any questions, do not hesitate to reach out to me Monday through Friday, and I'll be more than glad to assist you. Okay? I will be having one more final lecture over chapter 26, and I'll be recording that in a little bit, and I'll be uploading it as well. So make sure that at the end you do listen to 3 lectures over chapter 26. Okay? So that's it for this video. Until next time.